When you're talking to customers or persuasion targets that have some legitimate success in life, you can ask all the mind map expansion questions and they will love answering them. So long as you take a little bit of time, maybe a minute or two, to build some rapport so they trust you're not going to weaponize their answers or try to contradict their answers, they will love talking about their successes. So when you ask them questions like, what is your biggest success? Or how do you crush obstacles? Or how do you make decisions? Or what are some examples of you being a true leader among other people? They will just talk and talk and talk, and they will love talking about this stuff. But other people that don't have a lot of legitimate success, people that have kind of crappy jobs and they don't really see a way out of that and they don't really have a specific idea of how they can get to a better future. If you ask them these questions, they might feel like you're trying to low-key prove that they're a failure. And so if you ask questions like, what's your biggest success? They might struggle to come up with an answer. But you can still ask questions to expand their mental maps, get them feeling fantastic, and get them to buy whatever you're selling or go along with your idea. You just have to be very, very careful. And the first step is just to assume they made some kind of decision to make this conversation happen. If you sent them an email and they responded, or if you cold called them and they responded by asking for an appointment, or if they came into your shop, just assume they did something to get this conversation going, and just say something very simple like, I understand you're here because you want something. I don't know what that is. Maybe I can help you. Maybe I can't. But just out of curiosity, imagine this conversation went perfectly. Imagine you got exactly what you wanted from this conversation. What does that look like? A very open-ended question. What does that look like? And just let them talk. And you can ask this question to anybody and you'll know right away which kind of person you're talking to. A genuinely successful person with a lot of tangible results to brag about, or someone who's kind of stuck and they're not sure what they want in life, or they're not sure what the path forward is. With these people, you just need to run the conversation by asking follow-up questions. Just whatever they say, validate it, appreciate it, do not contradict it. Even if they say crazy things that don't seem to make sense, validate their mental maps and just ask follow-up questions. That sounds fantastic. Can you tell me more about this? That sounds fantastic. Can you tell me more about this? And what you're looking for is any kind of evidence, anything that's starting to get close to the prime directive, the main purpose of the ego desires, which is to feel important, which is to help other people, which is to be a strong leader, which is to make strong decisions and become valuable to other people and get that reciprocal appreciation. So anything that seems to getting close to that, even tangentially, whenever they're talking, and they'll be talking in a kind of a cloud of vague descriptions going all over the place. But that's okay. Just look for anything and let your intuition guide you. And what you're looking for is any type of intuitive jumps into identity priming. And you can use a technique called intuitive identity priming. And so you say something like, based on what you just said, it seems like you seem to be the kind of person who knows when to make strong decisions when you need to. Am I imagining things, or is this correct? And they'll almost always say, yes, this is correct. And then you can ask a presuppositional question with a double bind. When you make strong decisions, is it usually an intuitive thing, or is it more of a specific signal you get, a specific reason? And they'll almost always say intuitive. And now you've got them to admit to self-identity, identity priming, to identify themselves as someone who makes strong decisions. But critically, you're getting them to identify as somebody who makes strong decisions without needing to come up with a specific example. So you're bouncing off their answers, which are kind of vague and all over the place, and you're starting with that intuition. You seem to be the kind of person that knows when to make strong decisions when they're needed. Is that right, or am I imagining things? Yeah, that's right. Is it more intuitive, or is it more specific? That's more intuitive. And then what is that like? And then just whatever they talk about is predicated on the previous acceptance that they make strong decisions. You can do this for strong decisions. You can do this for overcoming obstacles. You can do this for being a strong leader. You can use this for sharing important ideas. You can use this for being valuable to other people, and do this on a few things, and that will get their mental state primed with these very strong decisions decision-making emotions without needing to come up with specific examples. It's very, very powerful. Another technique you can use with people that don't have a lot of success is they also will be kind of unwilling to really get specific about their future desires. A lot of people, everybody is programmed to dream about the future, but if you don't have a lot of history of success, if you're stuck in some kind of a crappy job and you can't see your way forward, you don't really like to imagine a bigger future, because the more you imagine the bigger future, the more you start to worry that it's never going to come. And so you kind of stay away from that. So if you ask somebody, what's your biggest dreams, they won't really like going there, because it might force them to acknowledge, at least subconsciously, that this is going to be forever out of reach. So another way you can get them in that mindset is ask, if you could name one thing that is stopping you for being as successful as you want, what would that one thing be? Now, for people that are legitimately successful, that one thing that is stopping them from success is probably something mechanical. I need to pay off my mortgage, then I can save up money to invest in my business. I need to get my credit score down above 800 so I can get a business loan. I need to finish my engineering degree. These are all mechanical things. Do this, then get this. But for people over here, it'll almost always be something outside in the world that's out of their control. Remember the ego reframing technique. Whenever we fail, one of the ego reframing techniques or strategies is to reframe the event so it's not my fault, it's the world's fault. And this is a very common modern cope, or this ego instinct is expressing itself as a modern cope. And so when you ask them, what's stopping you from making your biggest dreams come true, and they say something out in the world that's completely out of their control, that's perfectly fine. Accept that, validate that, and then ask kind of a magic wand question. Say something like this: well, but just for the sake of having a conversation, just to have a fantasy land conversation, if this thing out in the world that's stopping you from success magically disappeared, what would that be like? And that will allow them, in this kind of potential hypothetical future, imagine a kind of a parallel reality where their biggest obstacle suddenly vanished. That will allow them to get into that future desire state, and that's when you can expand their desire and use all the techniques from the persuasion sequence to expand their desires. Get them thinking a year out in the future, what's that like? Get them fully immersed in that in a fully internally, massively represented, emotionally strong state, and that will build up a whole lot of powerful states. With this technique, you can still take people that don't have a lot of material success and still get them in the perfect mindset of making strong decisions, overcoming obstacles, being valuable to other people. And when you combine that with a very robust, future-paced desire state, these will all combine together to put them in a very, very strong decision-making mindset, so you can sell them something or persuade them to do whatever you want them to do.